Hey everyone, how's it going? AZREN here. Hope you guys are doing well. In this video, I want to talk about a few different reasons as to why some people find learning a language a little bit easier than others. And obviously there's a lot of different reasons as to why this happens, but I want to talk about at least a few different reasons in this video here. Now, the first one is I think that some people are not very strategic when it comes to learning a new language. I think some people are not going about and tackling the new language in the best approach that would work for them. For example, I can talk about myself. I'm very self-aware that what works really well for me is when I'm immersed. Whether if that means I'm immersed like physically in a country that speaks that language, or just immersed even within my own city. Like when I was studying French and Spanish in university, basically all of my attention, or most of my attention in a given day, was focused on French and Spanish related topics, which meant that I would learn quite a bit faster. And when I'm in an environment that forces me to focus all my attention on it, I found that works really well for me. And because of that, when I go about learning languages, I'm very conscious to make sure that I'm putting myself in those kinds of environments. So I've lived in China for a while, I've lived in Peru, I've lived in Chile. Like I've done a lot of that to help me really push my language skills forward because I know it works, right? Other people, you need to be self-aware basically. You need to know what really works best for you, what doesn't work best for you, and you need to pick your strategies very strategically. Now, some people, I think they are very strategic. They go and pick the right strategies. They're doing all the right things. They're doing all this great stuff. And yet they're still finding it very challenging. And I think one of the main reasons for that, and this is not maybe a popular belief, but it is something I believe in, I do think that some people will naturally find languages a little bit easier than other people. And what that leads to is that even if you're doing all the right things, you're putting in the work, you're putting in the hours, you're studying properly, you're playing to your strengths, you're doing everything right, and yet you're still finding it hard because maybe for you, your brain is naturally wired in a way where other topics come more naturally or more easily for you. And so it's something to be very mindful of is, you need to look yourself in the mirror. I think a lot of this comes to self-awareness. You need to look yourself in the mirror to say like, where is my natural skill set when it comes to learning different languages and new languages? I think also similarly, I think you have to understand that learning a language, no matter how good you are, no matter how talented you are, no matter where you're from, no matter what language it is going to take a lot of work, a lot of time, a lot of effort. That's just the reality of how it is. And so when you're going about trying to learn a new language, I think some of the people who learn faster than others, I think they try to make it fun for themselves, so they try and make it an enjoyable process. Versus other people who really struggle, sometimes they're actually very stressed when they're studying. They're very stressed. They're putting a lot of pressure on their brain, a lot of pressure on themselves. And that actually reduces, it slows down the learning process. Versus other people, they're going about and they're having fun with it, they're obviously making lots of mistakes and they're working very hard, but they're a little bit more relaxed, meaning their brain can actually absorb a little bit more. And so I think that's something to be very mindful as well, is that, yeah, it's a hard process, it's going to take you a lot of work, there's no question about that, it's just kind of how really any skill in the world works, but can you attack it with a positive attitude? How can you make it fun? How can you make it enjoyable, etc.? I think also something to look at that isn't really talked about all that often is looking at, like, are the different languages that you're learning or that someone's learning, are they in the same language family or different language families? It's funny, I'm in a very polyglot kind of world. I'm sort of in this whole, I guess you could say, in this whole field and part of this community. And I notice that a lot of people will often look up to someone who speaks many, many languages and they'll say, wow, that person speaks 6 languages, which of course is obviously very, very, very impressive. However, I'll tell you what's more impressive. For me personally, my personal opinion is that if somebody goes and speaks 6 languages from different language families, I think that's a heck of a lot more impressive than someone who speaks 6 languages all from the same language family. Because same language family languages, that sounds kind of silly, but languages from the same language family, they share a lot of similarities. There's a lot of things that when you're studying one language are going to reappear in some other language that you're studying. But if they're different families, there's nothing in common. There's nothing at all. And it requires, in my opinion, in my experience, a lot more work on your part to be able to actually fully master that language or grasp that different language, right? And I think last but not least, we'll finish off on this topic or this note, is that I think some people, everyone defines being able to speak a language very differently, right? Like some people say, oh, I could carry a conversation, so I can speak the language. Other people think that, oh, I got a C2, I'm super fluent, so now I can speak. So everyone views that very differently. And so it's something to be mindful of, is what is your perspective on that as you're judging, oh wow, that person's really good and I'm really bad, or that person's mediocre and I'm above average, or whatever it is. You need to look at your own filter as to how are you looking at that situation, right? Like maybe that person speaks 12 languages, but speaks all of them at a very intermediate level, versus you look at person B, or maybe yourself, and you speak 4 languages, but you're like freaking awesome at all those 4. And so something to look at as well, because everyone has their own definition and everyone views that quite differently. So yeah, we'll end the video there. Obviously, I've got a lot of different thoughts I could go on. Like, there's a lot of stuff I could say. I could probably give a whole hour-long talk on the topic if I thought about it enough, but we'll keep this session short, end it here. Hope you guys liked the video, and I will see you guys later. Bye for now.